What's happening? 20 years ago today, the Labour movement had rather a jolly May Day. This morning, it's a tad more fractious, as the leadership continues determinedly to try to steer the campaign towards policies. Today it's tackling bad landlords. Before that, ousting 0 hours contracts. Others argue the focus should be elsewhere. Saboteurs or democracy in action. So hard to tell these days. First up, here's Tony Blair, announcing, as if we'd perhaps failed to notice, that he is back. A rash of anniversary interviews. Here's the Observer one, spreads to the Mirror today, where the former PM says he's not angling to return to Westminster. But there's a but. This Brexit thing has given me a direct motivation to get more involved in the politics. You need to get your hands dirty. And I am going to be taking an active part in trying to shape the policy debate. And that means getting out into the country and reconnecting. Also seeking reconnection today is Scottish Labour, which in 1997 scooped 56 Westminster seats to the SPN's 6 and the Conservatives' round 0. But that was then. Today Alistair Darling will mark the party's sole Scottish MP, Ian Murray, as they try to elbow their way back into the game with a reminder of Labour's record on tackling poverty. In a letter to The Guardian today, a host of Labour-friendly folk, our own Polly Toynbee and Owen Jones, obligatory Billy Bragg, and MPs Clive Lewis, Tulip Sadiq and John Cruddas, the party's former policy chief, among others, poke the recalcitrant leadership on the issue of a progressive alliance to sandbag the predicted Tory flood. Labour, they argue, should stand aside in favour of the Greens in Caroline Lucas-held Brighton Pavilion, and in the Isle of Wight, the one seat where they are the best placed party to defeat the Tories. Lewis again, this time with fellow ex-Shadow Cabinet member Rachel Maskell, calls on Labour to offer a second referendum once the terms of a Brexit deal are hammered out. On both those last 2 points, of course, Jeremy Corbyn has said no. On the Blair one, we might imagine his resolve to be yet firmer. What to expect from Theresa May on May Day or indeed month, after strong and stable leadership got another uncheered for encore on the Sunday politics shows. There's no sign of a vocab reboot, but an inkling of a manifesto change. VAT increases are out, but rises in national insurance and income tax could be in, as could an elderly care version of childcare vouchers, allowing so-called sandwich generation workers tax breaks to fund social care for their parents. No sandwiches for NHS workers, mind. Pressed by the SCP Andrew Marr on whether it was wrong. Some nurses were, with a 1% pay rise cap in place, being compelled to rely on food banks, the PM said. There are many complex reasons why people go to food banks. Well, sure, but hunger is one fairly basic reason. At a glance, SNP denies split over general elections impact on independence vote. Labour election losses could bolster Corbyn's support minus think tank. Irish reunification referendum would be dangerous, says Bertie Ahern. Social media firms must face heavy fines over extremist content, say MPs. Poll position. A Polling Matters /Opinium survey finds that, whatever Brexit means, 38% of voters say who will negotiate the best Brexit deal as Britain leaves the is the most important factor influencing the X on their ballot paper. A plump 51% of those polled named Theresa May as the more trusted negotiator, with just 13% opting for Jeremy Corbyn, even among Remain voters. She retained a 40% versus 20% advantage. Only 7% of Leave voters preferred the Labour leader. A whip through the Sunday voting intention polls also has May 1st on 1st May. We've a whole month of May /May puns ahead of us. This week's Opinium /Observer poll gives the PM a 17-point lead, with the incumbents on 47%, +2 on the previous week, against Labour's 30%, +4, with the Lib Dems on 8%, -2, and UKIP on %, -2. For the Sun on Sunday has the Conservatives on 47%, Labour on 28% and Lib Dems on 9%. YouGov for the Sunday Times offers a more slender lead, with the Tories on 44% and Labour on 31%. The Lib Dems perk up to 11% here. This helpful poll synthesis gives us 46% for the Conservatives, and 18-point lead over Labour on 28%. Diary from 10.15. The Lib Dem battle bus eschews bank holiday timetables and pelts across London, with stops at Kingston and Surbiton, Sutton and Cheam, and Hornsey and Wood Green. Tim Farron is your cheery conductor, with candidates Sarah Olney, Vince Cable and Ed Davey aboard. At 11.15, Alistair Darling and Ian Murray speak in Edinburgh South. Nicola Sturgeon joins Alex Salmond for an SNP childcare policy push at 11.30. London's May Day rally in Trafalgar Square will hear from Labour's John McDonnell around 2:30 p.m. Theresa May is expected in Lancashire this afternoon. Talking point. Will anything puncture the strong and stable bubble? Reports from Germany's Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, FAZ, on last week's meeting between May and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker put a dent in that notion. From the EU side, that is, the FAZ take has Juncker despairing of No 10's inability to grasp the complexities of Brexit negotiations, and declaring himself 10 times more skeptical about the chances of a deal post-conversation with May. The PM, Juncker reportedly told Angela Merkel, was living in a different galaxy. Yesterday, May rebuffed the assertion, making her just about the only person who hasn't wished at some point in the past couple of years to be far, far away. Read these. Zubaydah Haq, writing in the New Statesman, examines the diversification of what is often clumped together as the MB vote. Polling suggests that where ethnic minority communities are most concentrated, Labour are making their safe seats safer still, but are failing to appeal to growing Black and minority ethnic populations in less diverse marginal seats, where those communities could make a difference to the outcome. The Conservatives, on the other hand, are making some inroads in the most diverse seats, not enough, but able to capitalize on the votes in the less diverse seats. This is because while the population is, on average, poorer than the white British population, some groups, notably the Indians and the Chinese, are increasingly more middle class than their ethnic minority peers, and more likely to live in suburbs, and vote Conservative, like their neighbours. In the Herald, David Torrance analyses the Conservative resurrection in Scotland. After the 2015 election, they worked hard to identify and model no voters. The sort of detailed groundwork nationalists have been deploying for years. They then targeted two groups of voters: those who regarded themselves as conservatives but didn't think there was any point voting them, credibility voters, and those, generally younger, who were attracted by Ruth Davidson's leadership, fashionable voters. Both were latent groups of voters that required motivation. The Scottish Tories also started asking no voters who was best placed to stand up to Nicola Sturgeon. And increasingly they heard Ruth Davidson. In reply, it's important not to exaggerate this. The SNP will still win the general election in Scotland in terms of both seats and votes. But the point is they're likely to experience a knock. And that's something they're not used to. Revelation of the day. There is an official election artist for 2017 and she is Cornelia Parker, known for her 3-meter-long embroidered Magna Carta and various exploded artworks. Parker is charged with producing a work for the Parliamentary Art Collection. Sums up whatever this campaign turns out to be. You can chart her progress minus and politicians beware. Breakfast bacon minus on Instagram. The day in a tweet. The whole thread, from The Economist's Jeremy Cliff on the Faz Brexit story, is worth a trawl. But yes, the U Club Secrets rule is over. And another thing. Would you like to wake up to this briefing in your inbox every weekday? Sign up here.